I spent a solid 30 to 45 minutes prepping for today's show just for one part of it, because after seeing yet another ESPN mock draft with a similar result for Atlanta, it got the wheels churning. So make sure you stick around for that. But Mel Kiper and Field Yates collabed for a 3-round mock draft where the Falcons have 4 picks in the top 3 rounds. So we're going to go through pick by pick and kind of react to each selection that they made for the Falcons. So let's get right into it, starting with picks 1 through 8, where they have Caleb Williams going number 1, followed by Jaden Daniels and Drake May. No real surprise there. Marvin Harrison 4, J.J. McCarthy in a trade-up between the Vikings and the Chargers. Malik Neighbors goes to the Giants. The Titans at 7 go Joe Alt. And Atlanta at the spot only has really 2 to 3 options, right? They can go maybe Rome Odunze, they could go Dallas Turner, or they could go Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell. Well, no surprise here. They go Dallas Turner for the Atlanta Falcons. So I know we have spent a lot of time talking about Turner, and I'm not just going to be a broken record and repeat the same information. We're going to go a different direction for discussing the 6'3", 247-pound edge rusher who ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, the first amongst all outside linebackers, and first 10-yard split at 1.54 seconds. You know all that right now, okay? We have seen Dallas Turner's stats and numbers, comes off a 10-sack season, 55 pressures, yada, yada, yada. We have spent a lot of time discussing Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or Leatu Latu. So what I did was I spent maybe a great use of time or a poor use of time. And what I did was I looked at Mel Kiper specifically. I just took one pundit from the NFL draft world, and I looked at their mock drafts from 2020 to 2023. So 4-year sample size. And what I've noticed throughout this year's mock draft cycle is it's always Dallas Turner. Everyone has Dallas Turner to Atlanta at number 8. In fact, it's almost like we only know 2 picks. Caleb Williams, number 1, and Dallas Turner, number 8. I think people are more confident about the 8th overall pick than 2 through 7. So I went back and I looked at Kiper's old mock drafts. And he usually puts out somewhere between 4 to 6 mocks a year. And I looked and see how often did he consistently put the same player to the same team. And was he right? Basically, was he right about the past, and will he be right about Dallas Turner? Because for a 5th straight mock draft, it's Turner to Atlanta. So looking at last year's mock drafts, 3 different mocks. He had Will Anderson go to the Cardinals. Now, last year was a bit tough because the first few mock drafts didn't have the Panthers trading up to the 1st overall pick, and that turns the draft on its head. But he did have Peter Skoronski to the Eagles 3 times. Ultimately, Philadelphia went Jalen Carter, right? He had 3 Kalijah Kanceys to the Eagles at the end of the first round of the draft. Kancey went much earlier to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he didn't really have a good batting average last year, but last year's draft was really tough because of the trades. How about 2 years ago? 3 times he had Trayvon Walker, 1st overall pick to the Jags, out of about 5 or 6 possible mocks. 3 times he had Garrett Wilson go to Atlanta at number 8. That was just flat out wrong, right? He had the right position, he just had the wrong player. It was Drake London, who he had going to the Jets in 3 separate mock drafts. He also had Kenny Pickett going to the Saints 3 times. So gets Walker correct, but you should get the 1st overall pick correct. After that, not a great batting average. So let's go back one more year, 2021. 5 mock drafts. He had Trevor Lawrence to the Jags. That was pretty easy, though. So kudos to him. 4 times he had Zach Wilson to the Jets. Also pretty easy. I will say, very impressively, he had Rashawn Slater, 13th overall, to the Chargers in 4 mock drafts. Rashawn Slater was the 13th overall pick in this draft by the Los Angeles Chargers. He also had wide receiver Terrace Marshall go to the Ravens in 4 mock drafts. All the way at pick 27, Marshall would end up going round 2 to the Panthers. But maybe his crown jewel would be the 2020 mock draft, where he was very consistent with a lot of his picks from mock to mock to mock. And maybe that's a little bit of laziness, or maybe that's just him standing by his guns. But he had Joe Burrow and Chase Young in all 5 mock drafts go 1 and 2. Got that correct. In 5 mock drafts, all 5 of them, he had Patrick Queen to the Ravens at 28. That was correct. I mean, that's incredibly difficult to predict the 28th pick in the draft 5 consecutive times, keep the same pick, and get it right. He had Jeff Okudah in 4 of his 5 mock drafts, go number 3 to the Lions. He got that correct. He had Derek Brown to the Panthers, pick number 7 4 times. Guys, this is kind of similar to Atlanta at number 8. 4 times he had Mekhi Becton to the Browns. Cleveland did go tackle. They went Jed Wills, though, so he had the wrong player there. He had the edge rusher, Yuto Gross-Matos to the Titans 4 times at pick 29. That did not happen. He was correct on Tua and Herbert 3 times. And then for the Falcons, he had 3 mock drafts of them taking K'Lavon Chaisson. So he had some good hits there, right? Patrick Queen, Derek Brown, but he had some misses as well, like Becton and Gross-Matos. So overall, Mel Kiper, he is 4 for 4, at least since 2020. I kind of drew in the line, a line in the sand of that year, when mocking players to a team 5 times in mock draft. So 4 times he's predicted a player to go to a team in 5 mock drafts, and he is 4 for 4. Now, a good chunk of those were the first overall pick, which is easy to do, but there is something to be said about when Kiper's got his sights zeroed in on one player to a team 5 times, he's pretty dead on. So do with that what you will, but I think Dallas Turner is a Falcon. Now we're going to look at his day 2 selections along with Field Yates' picks in just a moment. But first, today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports platform in North America, where all you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, the more players you select, the more difficult it is to go 6 for 6, 5 for 5, but also the bigger potential winnings to be had. Now, I love using Prize Picks because I think it's a great way to stay locked in and engaged on games you may not have a big rooting interest in, right? We've got some NBA play-in games coming up. Hand up, not a huge fan of the Lakers and Warriors, but I'm definitely going to be extra locked in now along with the Pelicans because with Prize Picks, all I have to do is go on there and choose more or less for their projected stats. So download Prize Picks today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, but go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use that code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy at Prize Picks. To go full circle, though, on Dallas Turner, I do want to share with you guys what they wrote about the selection. It's no surprise Atlanta will attack the edge position in the draft. And Turner is a sudden, bendy rusher who had a terrific finish to his college career by winning SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. I think it's pretty certain at this point that Atlanta is going edge rusher at pick number 8, and then it kind of becomes a debate. Which edge rusher? Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu. Almost unanimously, everyone has Dallas Turner penciled in, and I think that's the direction the Atlanta Falcons are going to go. But it is the NFL draft. You got to expect the unexpected. So let me know, do you want to draft Dallas Turner? I know we have spent a lot of time going over Turner, Verse, and Latu. But if it is Turner, would you be okay with that? Sound off in the comment section. All right, next up on the show, day 2 picks for the Falcons. They have a second at 43 and a pair of third-round picks thanks to the Calvin Ridley trade. So let's jump into round number 2, where the Atlanta Falcons at pick 43 go wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky after a run of players in the trenches and breaking it up before Jackson Powers Johnson goes to the Raiders. So let's get you guys familiar with Malachi Corley because I'm sure most of you were not watching the Hilltoppers last year. 5'11", 210 pounds. Now, I like to do a compliment sandwich. The pro I've got for him is he is the yak king, yards after catch. Last year in the MAC, 9.2, or last 2 seasons, 9.2 yards after the catch. That is some of the best we have seen in college football. He's got more yards after the catch than all the top wide receivers in this draft class. More than Rome Odunze, more than Malik Neighbors, more than Marvin Harrison Jr. So he only has one real trick to his game, which is give me the ball in open space and I'll do the rest. He's not a contested catcher. He's not a jump ball guy. He's not a precision route runner. But what he does do well, and it may only be one thing, he does better than anyone else in this draft class. Now, 75% of his catches last year for the Hilltoppers came within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. I will say that this is the type of stat that when you get to the NFL, you could see a dramatic change because he's going from having a Western Kentucky quarterback to Kirk Cousins. So maybe Kirk is a little bit more accurate down the field than his Hilltopper quarterback. Last year, though, at Western Kentucky, 985 yards, 11 touchdowns, 79 grabs. He is a surefire hands type of player, and the ability for him to pick up yards after the catch has made him a popular comp to Deebo Samuel. So when you look at Atlanta's wide receiver room, of course, everyone would like to have a Deebo Samuel, but they don't really have a Deebo Samuel type player, right? So Corley could come in and bring something new to this wide receiver room where Drake London is your contested catch type of player. Darnell Mooney is your vertical threat. Rondale Moore is just happy to be on this roster because Desmond Ridder is no longer the starting quarterback. But Corley could bring in, and he could bring a new flavor to this wide receiver room. Here's what Kiper wrote on the selection. The Falcons need to use one of their 3 day 2 picks on a wideout, preferably one with the flexibility to play in the slot. Corley had 29 touchdown catches over the past 3 seasons. I do think at pick 43, it's a bit early for Malachi Corley. He's a bit of a one-trick pony, and he did it in a non-power conference, which means, I'm sorry to discriminate against the group of 5, but you're not going up against the best competition. So shedding tacklers in the MAC is a little bit easier than in the SEC. But I am a Malachi Corley fan. I do think he's going to make for a really solid player for some team. I'm not sure if he's going to be some Pro Bowl wide receiver in the future, but I do think he's got a good career ceiling to his game. So I like Malachi Corley as a player. I think you could probably find him in round 3, though. Now, if it is edge at pick number 8, what do you think the position should be at pick 43? Wide receiver? Cornerback? You want to double dip at edge rusher? Let me know what you think in the comments. Moving on to round 3, where Atlanta's got 2 picks nearby. At 74, they go cornerback from Notre Dame, Cam Hart. And then at 79, they go defensive tackle out of Clemson. We've got Ruke Orhorhoro. And I know it sounds like I am horribly mispronouncing that name, but I am literally reading off the pronunciation guide right now. So let's start with Cam Hart. 6'3", 202 pounds. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. So when you think about the cornerback position, I know during the NFL draft process, everyone gets super worked up over height and size and speed, and I think that's important for some positions more than others. Cornerback, I do think it's very relevant. If you're 6'3" versus 5'11", 4 inches is a huge difference when trying to break up a pass, right? If you're running a 4.5 40-yard dash or running a 4.6 40-yard dash, that 1/10 of a second is a huge difference when trying to catch up to a wide receiver versus getting burned. So Cam Hart, from a physical trait standpoint, he really jumps out. And the reason why he's not going earlier is he doesn't have great production in his career. He's got 2 career interceptions for the Fighting Irish. Last year, he was targeted 28 times, gave up 15 completions, only 137 yards in coverage, 0 touchdowns. So when you watch him on tape, the film doesn't jump out as like, now that's a lockdown corner. But when you see 6'3", 4.5 40, and he doesn't get burned or picked on a whole lot, yeah, I'm all aboard that 3rd round selection, especially when you're thinking about the Falcons cornerback room where Clark Phillips may be an inside corner, maybe an outside corner. I'll tell you what Cam Hart is. He is a man-covering corner playing on the outside, and that's what Atlanta needs to lock down first, right? They got to find their CB2. Let Clark Phillips and D. Alford kind of juke it out for the nickel cornerback spot, or let one of them be the first cornerback off the bench. But when it comes to looking for physical traits, I don't care too much about them when it comes to like quarterbacks, offensive tackles. They're all huge. They're all big guys, right? Not even so much about wide receivers. Like there are so many successful wide receivers in the NFL with various backgrounds. Okay, DeAndre Hopkins and what's his face from Cal who went to the Eagles, Deshaun Jackson, are both incredibly talented wide receivers, and they could not be more far apart as the types of players they are. So when it comes to cornerbacks, like I think it's much more important to look at the size and the speed than other position groups. Now let's move on to the other selection in round number 3. This is Ruke Orhorhoro. So 6'4", 294 pounds. I know it sounds like I'm getting it horribly wrong. I'm literally reading off of the pronunciation guide, so I feel really bad if I'm just butchering this. Some Clemson fan, let me know. 6'4", 294 pounds, like I was saying. He was a 3-year starter, and he played all over the defensive line, which I think is a big plus for him, especially when you're looking into day 2, into early day 3 of the draft, where teams are looking for some versatility, right? Can you play in different spots? Because if you're going to be a depth piece, if you're going to be a backup for us to begin your NFL career, we would love to have a guy that can, help out in different spots where if injuries pop up, we feel comfortable with putting you at nose tackle from all the way to 3 technique, maybe even 5 technique. So for Atlanta, they are looking for, obviously, depth on this defensive line. They're looking for talent. They're looking for production. But they are looking for guys right now. And they are not going to be too picky about what position you play because they kind of need help all across the board. So for Juke, I mean, if he can come in and he can rotate in a Grady Jarrett spot, awesome. If he can help out from the defensive end position, great. If he can give Onyemata a breather on 3rd down, terrific. So I think the versatility really helps him out in this regard. So going over Mel Kiper and Field Yates, I know I kind of just excluded Field Yates from this mock draft, but they collabed on it together. How would you grade it? Turner at 8, Malachi Corley, Cam Hart, and then Ruke Orhorhoro. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section below. I'd give this mock a B+. I think the Corley pick is a fun pick, maybe a little bit on the early side, but I like the Turner and Cam Hart selections a lot. So I would give this a B+ mock draft. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I always appreciate those of you that watch all the way to the end of the video. And if you're still watching, make sure to like today's video.